Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Questions for Lawyers. Today, we're going to be talking to a candidate who's running for Coconut Creek Commissioner for re-election for the third time. My name is Jeff Edelman. I'm your host, and today I bring you my good friend, Josh Rydell. Josh, thanks so much for taking time off the campaign trail to be with us today.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this. And I'm also a lawyer that hopefully can answer some questions today.
Well, you dovetail right into the title of the show, so that's why we're glad to have you. I've been meaning to talk to you for quite some time, and I know that the election date is coming up real quick. It's on Tuesday this week. This is your third election. You've been reelected two times for the Coconut Creek commissioner spot. What's your motivation to continue to serve the residents of Coconut Creek?
Motivation is probably my family and my kids. When me and Jamie moved to Coconut Creek, it was our first house. She has long-standing ties here. My grandparents used to live in Coconut Creek, so it was a natural city for us to gravitate to raise a family and start a family. And in 2015, when I ran, we had just had our first daughter, and it was an opportunity to make sure that this community and the city was a really great place to continue to raise kids. And I came here years ago as a high school kid and a middle school kid for spring break. Coconut Creek was more of a retirement community. It's completely changed from how it was perceived years ago. Granted, we still have a huge contingent of senior citizens that we protect and do events for and do a lot of things for, but there's a huge amount of young families and schools and programming, and that's really has been my motivation of why I ran in the first place and why I want to continue to serve.
Josh, during your tenure as commissioner for a municipality in Broward County, there's been a lot of unprecedented happenings that have gone on. Obviously, we have the Douglas shooting. We're still in the thick of COVID-19. We'll start with COVID-19. Tell me what it's been like to serve during this time when basically the world was completely turned upside down about a year ago.
The crazy thing about it is, professionally, we're both lawyers. I haven't stepped foot, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've been in a courtroom in the past, year. So professionally, I think it's been a devastating year for everybody. It's been a hard year financially, and it's been a hard year for cities. But this was an opportunity for innovation and creativity to really take off. It was great that we were able to redirect funds in the city to go to our small businesses and our nonprofits, to put physical checks in people's hands that they didn't need to pay back, to make sure that they could pay their rent, to relax requirements for sign restrictions and ways businesses could promote themselves. So it was unique. It was hard. I mean, you have a lot of, we have a senior population here as well that was scared. People didn't want to go out, understandably, because we have a disease that could kill you. And the city had to pivot, not just in service to make sure that our taxes didn't go up, because obviously there's been an economic downturn, but also to protect our residents through mask giveaways and food giveaways and these grant programs. It's been really great being creative in that respect to try to protect our community, not just fiscally, but also give people a break. This has been hard on families with your mental health and your relationships and things of that nature. So we've tried to be as creative as we can to foster the ability to bring people up during this unprecedented, difficult time.
Yeah, some of the things that you mentioned, helping small businesses, giving grants to businesses to help. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have some money in the city that has traditionally been earmarked, about $500,000 to promoting and helping new businesses. So we're able to redirect some of those funds that any small business in Coconut Creek was able to qualify for a $2,500 grant. They applied to the city. It's not something they need to pay back. And then we were able to increase it and then roll the program out to some of our small nonprofits to get them $2,200 in grant funding. So that was money we were able to get in people's pockets before they were able to get some of this government money, because you and I know some of the PPP money and the SBA money that didn't come right away. So it was really beneficial on a municipal level to try to get people money quickly so they can pay their rent and keep their doors open.
No question. Well, talk about if you're honored to serve the people of Coconut Creek for another term as commissioner. What are your priorities this time around?
I think the main priority now is seeing through the rehabilitation from COVID. I mean, the big priority, there's a lot of developmental issues that are happening. You know, we have a turnpike expansion potentially coming, and we have Mount Trashmore that always just seems to get bigger and bigger, and we keep fighting and fighting. But I think the number one priority is what we've done the past year is making sure that we come out of COVID both sound financially, not just as a city, but our residents, that we come out of COVID sound mentally, to make sure our residents in the city have programming and activities and resources if they need help, you know, and to kind of come out of this better and stronger than we were before. I think that's major priority number one, but obviously there's a number of other things I'd like to accomplish and continue to accomplish. But I think the big issue for everybody right now, and I think every city as well as the whole country is impacted by it, is coming out of COVID successfully.
No question, that's number one. Tell me about some of the endorsements you've received. In particular, looking at your endorsements, I was looking at some of the school board members that have endorsed you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I've been very entrenched in education. I coach a high school mock trial team. Obviously, I think you talk to any parent, and I got two little girls, our children are our future. We know that. And traditionally, municipal government doesn't really interact with the school system. The schools happen to be in cities, but we don't really have a say over them. That's what the school board has. As an elected official in Coconut Creek, I've tried to step up and I've tried to engage so differently with how we deal with our schools. You know, the first thing before COVID, we started something called the Do the Right Thing Coconut Creek program. It's connecting our police department with kids from kindergarten to 12th grade in Coconut Creek schools that do exactly what it says, to do the right thing. And then we bring them to City Hall, we give them gift bags and gift cards and awards and celebrate whatever they did, whether it was a kindergartner who started a trash collection, or we had a senior from Monarch High School that was a first responder and had training to help an elderly person out of a car after a car accident. So I've seen it's some of the most heartwarming stuff that we've been able to interact with our schools. But really, what was important is after the tragedy at MSD, we ended up going out with our police department and getting the first ever in Broward County a vapor dog, a school dog that specifically smells guns, ammunition, bullets to yield school safety. So based on some of these relationships, it's been an honor to get to know amazing leaders like Lori Alladef, Debbie Hickson, Nora Rupert, Sarah Leonardi, that have really been fighting for our students and over COVID, fighting for our teachers as well. So that those are some of the teachers that have endorsed us, and it's been that the community endorsements mean so much to somebody because they know what you've done. You've been tested with these people. You've been in the trenches fighting for them and fighting with them. So that's why it's been kind of really humbling that some of these other leaders locally have stepped up, and even with our firefighters. Our firefighters stayed out at almost every election in Coconut Creek, but they endorsed me because they know that I've fought for our first responders day in and day out.
You mentioned that your motivation is your family and making Coconut Creek a better place to live and always working to improve. Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the pandemic, me and my wife, Jamie, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. It was very exciting. We put some sand in the backyard in a beach blanket and pretended to have a beach getaway. And it was actually back in April where literally no one was leaving the house. So that was in the time where we were really on lockdown. And I'm blessed with two amazing, healthy little girls. One's about to turn 9 and the other just turned 5 again over the pandemic. So it's been hard, and I will tell you this, that while they're my motivation, it's also interesting to see how kids, especially in that age bracket, have adapted to virtual learning. And it gives us a whole new subsect of kind of how to parent in this virtual world with how our kids have been, have to deal with the world now, as opposed to what it used to be.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's been quite a change to be working in this room and then having my boys in their rooms, and I hear them talking and everything else with their teachers, and very strange. And hopefully by the end of this year, they won't have to do that anymore.
Well, I'd agree with you on that. And the good news is, some of the governor's orders that came out this week, allowing teachers to get vaccinated, prioritizing our schools now. our first responders. So there's been some good stuff coming down on a statewide level that I'm very positive that in the next couple of months we're going to see a huge amount of people getting vaccinated. But still reminding people that we still do need to stay safe.
No question, no question. Well, tell me this. You've been in office now 5, 6 years. Tell me some of your proudest accomplishments, Josh.
The one I love the most, which isn't the biggest or the most significant, is, a couple of years ago I fought for some money that we were able to find through some grants to build splash pads in the city. So we have 2 splash pads that I cut the ribbon on in 2 different parts of Coconut Creek where kids can run outside and play. And we don't have a city center with an aquatic center in Coconut Creek like some of our neighboring cities do. So it was a cool thing that I was able to spearhead and cut a ribbon on, and inaugurally stand out there with my daughters running around and enjoying it. So that's a guilty personal pleasure, but on a larger level that I feel significant accomplishments that have been made citywide. 3.5 years ago, we actually struck a landmark deal with Waste Management and the dump that they're limited in the amount of garbage they can put in. They're limited in how big it's going to get. They're coming back at the end of this year, the beginning of next year, to try to change some of that. But that was the first time in the history of the country that Waste Management has ever entered into an agreement with a municipality to say, hey, we're going to put literally about 100 times less of the stinky garbage into the dump. 2 years ago, the Turnpike, the Department of Transportation of Florida came in and wanted to expand the Turnpike literally into people's backyards. And we were able to convince them to not do that because ultimately they wanted to put an express lane on the Turnpike, which logically doesn't even make sense. It's a paid road. Why are you putting another paid road on a paid road? So sometimes, you just need the right people in government being the loud voice in the room and being able to gain consensus to kind of do what a community needs as opposed to what other people that don't live here think we need.
Well, let me ask you that. I asked you about some of the things you're proudest of. What are some things that you want to work to improve in Coconut Creek that you haven't been able to do as of this point?
A big priority, and I think you'll find this very telling. And this is something that I have been working on, and we're literally on the cusp of really starting a whole new program in the city, and it has to do with our fire department. For years, the city of Coconut Creek has been tied with the city of Margate. We've had a kind of a joint fire department. The city of Coconut Creek, we're standing up our own fire department. And we have been hiring, and we're going to be probably in the next year having our complete autonomy to have our own independent fire department. And a big reason for that is in your city, Jeff, you have, if you have to call 911 where you are dispatched to the Coral Springs 911 center, and it's a very effective call center. There has been some issues countywide with the county's regional 911 system. We've heard the complaints from our first responders, from our police officers, from our residents that the 911 system, you could be somewhere and they don't even know where you are. So the work that I've bit off that we're still moving forward on is this transition to the Coral Springs Dispatch Center and standing up our own fire department, which I think is going to do a tremendous amount for first responders and response times in the city of Coconut Creek.
Yeah, I think that's proven to be a very valuable thing in Coral Springs. I hope in Coconut Creek that you can work to get some type of plan like that implemented. I think that would be fantastic. Well, tell me this: if people want to learn more information about you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
You can call me. You can pick up the phone and call me. It's I'll give you my cell phone number. I'll give you our campaign website, but I don't think that ever does it justice. You can read about someone on the web, but when I go places, people are always surprised. They're like, "You're giving your cell phone number out?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what we do." And I want people to call me. It's 954-856-8015. And our website, if you want to read more about me, is ourcoconutcreek.com. OUR coconutcreek.com. And that tells you a little bit about some of the things that we've done, that we intend to do, and how we've represented the city. But at the end of the day, in local government, everything starts locally. And a majority of people that I help has to do with, they have a pothole on their street, or there's an issue in their neighborhood, or they want to know about, can they put a certain sign out? Or they want to know if there's an issue with a police officer, good or bad. And that's why I want to be accessible, because I think if you want to be in local government, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. you got to be available and accessible to your community. And I've always prided myself on doing that.
Yeah, and I've always respected you about that. I've seen you give out your phone number, and I know how accessible you are to other people that I've spoken to. So that's refreshing to see in politics, local or otherwise. Josh, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of the civic organizations that you're involved in. I know in particular, Florida's Children First is near and dear to your heart. Can you talk about some of those organizations, including Florida's Children First?
There's a lot of them, but I will tell you this. I'll talk about the one that we have been engaging right now. Florida Children's First is a statewide nonprofit that I sit on the board for that really focuses on helping youth that have found themselves in the system, in the foster care system, neglected, abused children, that this organization not only engages them, builds them up, and gives them a life for future success. It is an amazing program that we lobby in Tallahassee to make sure that there's laws on the books that can protect kids, that can hold people accountable that hurt our kids, our Florida children. And it has been the honor of a lifetime just watching the success stories that come out of this program. So, we also have some great programs in Coconut Creek that I've been involved in. We have the SOS Children's Village, which is, if you don't know, is kind of this unique model nationwide. It's a group home structure for kids that are in the system, but it's even more unique because it's specifically geared to siblings. And a lot of times when siblings are in the foster care system, they can't stay together. And this is a unique subsect where kids can stay together, families can stay together. And the best part of it is, of all the kids there, they have 100% graduation rate in high school. And that's a pretty cool thing. There's actually a young man that went through the SOS is now a very famous NFL receiver. So there are some pretty cool things that are happening on a number of different levels. But I'll start with those two, just because they're really amazing organizations. But there's a number of other charitable things that we do. Some I have no problem exalting from the rafters. Others you want to be more quiet about it, just based on the nature of what they do. Some of the things that we've done with some of the equine therapy centers that are in Coconut Creek, based on the tragedies that have happened in Parkland and things of that nature. But that's a huge focus of what we do that I love more than anything.
Josh, I know you've been extremely busy with campaigning. Can you tell anybody watching, listening, what the rest of your day is going to be like today and tomorrow and leading into Tuesday, Election Day?
Calling voters. That really we've knocked on thousands of doors in this city already. When I first ran in 2015, I did the same thing. We've had an amazing, and humbling outreach effort from local businesses that have my sign up, and local leaders and homeowners association presidents and condo association presidents that are just so proud to help us and help us, win this election. But probably the next day is, I don't know when we're going to be airing this, but I will say that the next couple of days gearing up to an election, you're just making sure the last minute things are handled. You're calling your big volunteers. You're making sure that they're going to be able to help. And your polls are staffed on election day. I'll be out there on election day all day, and my wife and daughters will be. So that's kind of the end of it. And I will say this: March 9th, Tuesday, March 9th is election day. If you are watching this and still have an absentee ballot, do not send it in. It will not be counted at this point. We want you to either bring it to a poll and vote in person, or drop it off to the supervisor of elections website. But that is really the biggest thing, because what people don't realize sometimes, Jeff, and I know you do, is that your local elected officials, they don't get all the fanfare, but your local elected officials, hands down, affect your life more than what goes on in Washington, D.C. on a daily basis.
No question about it. Well, for anybody who doesn't know where their poll is or anything like that, the Broward Supervisor of Elections, I believe it's browardsoe.gov. Is that correct?
It is, or you can, that cell phone number I gave you before, call me and I'll find your poll for you. I'll look it up, and if you need help getting there, we'll make sure somebody helps you get there.
You want to give your number out again?
954-856-8015.
Well, Josh, I can't thank you enough for coming on and speaking with my audience. I wanted to give you an opportunity. If there's anything else you want to say to anybody who hasn't voted, is thinking about should I vote, anything like that, give you the final word.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate you finding the time to allow me to just come on and engage. Listen, in small communities, we Coconut Creek is a small community. It's a small town. It has a small town feel, and we want to keep that in this city. We want to make sure that we have controlled development. We want to make sure that we take care of and support our first responders. We want to make sure that you enjoy your life and your parks and your programs to the fullest. And it has been my honor of a lifetime serving people in that capacity for the past 5 years. And I look forward to continuing to serve because the work's not done. And we need this community to come out bigger, better, and stronger than ever out of COVID. And really, it's not just about, because there's other commissioners in the city. There's other, dynamics countywide. We also need somebody that can build consensus. And I've proven myself to be able to build consensus and bring things, not just on a state level and a county level, but from neighboring cities that we've been able to work together. So if you have any questions about this election, you pick up the phone and you call me. I will happily answer any question openly and honestly. And thank you, Jeff. Thank you for what you do. And on the lawyer side of it, I love that we can engage in lawyer questions because so many people have questions for lawyers. And I've watched other interviews you've done. So maybe I can come back in a different capacity talking about what I do after March 9th when we win.
I would love to do it. You just let me know when you want to. I do enjoy doing this. Usually we're talking about legal subjects to try to, talk with people, because I think that there's an intimidation factor sometimes with speaking with lawyers for the first time. I try to give people the information they need so that they know what to ask a lawyer or what to ask a commissioner for that matter, because there is some relation there. I mean, obviously you're dealing with the law, you're dealing with government, and it kind of intertwines. But Josh, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you got a lot to do for the rest of it. I would encourage anybody listening to this or watching, make sure if you're a resident of Coconut Creek that you go to your poll on March 9th. That's this Tuesday, March 9th, and support Josh Rydell for re-election. I think you can see from this interview what the substance of Mr. Rydell is, and I'm honored to have you on the program.
Thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate the time, and I get back to enjoying your family today.
You got it. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for listening, watching. We'll be with you again very soon. Be well.